Welcome to the dark side of BEASTwriter, where social media engagement is encouraged. I'm your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we're going to be talking about a lot of different things as it pertains to the Las Vegas Raiders. I ran defensive game grades on the team, gathered the team's pulse, graded every single snap of all the players around the league, as well to kind of give you an apples-to-apples comparison on how some players are doing as opposed to others. And really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to formulate my analysis and really paint a picture of exactly what's going on. Because if you can read the box score, anyone can do that. Cool story, bro. But if you actually grade the snap, that's where really I like to do my business. So again, it's a lot of time and effort that goes into it. But at the end of the day, I think it's all worth it simply because of the fact that, look, I keep saying it. If you're going to criticize or praise a player, at least have the decency to grade the snap, right? Sit down, grade the snap, don't grade the box score. And so that's how I kind of formulate my analysis. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this and see where it goes. So Robert says, let's do this. I am ready for it, man. Robert also says, truly hope you stay with Raider Nation. Beast, enjoy what you do. Thank you so much for the kind words. Birdman 530 says, thank you for keeping up with the Raiders and giving us real analysis and updates, my dude. Look forward to this show. Jesse Cardenas, thank you so much. Birdman, Jesse says, Raiders all day, baby. He says, salute, fam. And we are ready to rock and roll. The nation is truly blessed to have an educated individual like this in our media room. Stay with us, BEASTwriter. Hashtag Raiders. I like it. I like it. And I love it. And I love it every minute and every second of it. And there's nothing but good vibes here in the dark side of BEASTwriter. You'll notice that people that pop in, Kevin, thank you so much. And mahalo for the super chat yesterday. I really appreciate it. People have been asking me whether I attend road games. And yes, I can get credentials to attend road games. Obviously, I have to apply for it and get approved. But if I can, I'm independent. I'm self-employed. So I have to pay my own way. And that's expensive. So my goal for all the super chats that I get, obviously, you guys like my work. Otherwise, you wouldn't be following and watching this right now. You guys can go ahead and send me a super chat and or super sticker if you'd like. If not, which I totally understand because obviously the economy is really horrible right now. just give the video a thumbs up. That actually helps me out a lot just by giving the video a thumbs up. So there's 15 people watching here that I see on my end straight from the live stream here. Go ahead and give it a thumbs up and do me a solid, because that will help me out a lot as well. So like I said, all the money that I get from the YouTube channel is going to be funneled back into you guys. What I mean by that is if I go on these road trips, or let's say one road trip, right? let's not get it twisted. Let's say I go on a few or one road trip, whatever, right? Any money that's left over, if there is money left over, gets funneled back to you. What I mean by that is I run giveaways, right? So I run giveaways for all you guys. This is something that I'm going to be doing. I run a giveaway. I already, Alzado is going to be getting one, but then so are one of you lucky winners. So this is the alumni 2022 rally towel that the Las Vegas Raiders gave to season ticket holders and us in the media. So I like to give back to you guys. So these are the little things I think that go a long way. And so you guys are supporting me and I want to support you. So it goes both ways, right? It goes both ways. So I'll be running a giveaway for that. I do a lot of giveaways because that's how I've always been doing things. Even when I covered the San Francisco 49ers as a beat writer, I always ran giveaways. In fact, I have season tickets in lower box section 134 at Levi Stadium, had front row seats at Candlestick. And so those were my tickets. I'm paying X amount, obviously you guys can do the math. That's a lot of money, but I like to give those tickets away, as a thank you. And I still continue doing that. Even though I cover the Raiders, I still have season tickets to the Niner games, and I still give tickets to those fans who've been loyal with me through the thick and thin, and even on moving on to Las Vegas. So again, it's just a little something that I like to do, because I know when I was a kid growing up, financially, it wasn't always feasible for me to attend a game, and I always wanted to attend the game. It wasn't until 1991 that my parents took over the season tickets for the San Francisco 49ers in the front row on the 20-yard line in lower box section 14 that I was able to start attending games. But growing up, is one of those things where it's kind of teeter-tottering. So this is what I like to do. I like to give back to all of you guys, because without you guys, none of this would be possible. Let's not get it twisted. So let's go ahead and get started on this. We're just going to start right now. So the Las Vegas Raiders, we're going to do a progress report through the first 5 games. And again, there's a lot of legwork that goes into it. I don't just grade the box score, I grade the snaps. So literally you dissect a game, right? Like one game for me takes about 3.5 hours, just one side of the football. So you times that by 2, that's 7 hours of game film for one team, right? And that's not including just the starters. You're talking about the backups as well. So a lot of legwork goes into it. And then you multiply that by 5. And then you also multiply that by me gaining the pulse around the NFL, because in order for me to compare my analysis for the team that I'm covering, which is the Las Vegas Raiders, to teams like within the AFC West, like the Los Angeles Chargers, Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, and then also on the flip side of the San Francisco 49ers, grading the best players, right? Getting you an apples to apples comparison from my perspective on how I grade and who is actually stacking up against the best of the cream of the crop. So we're going to go ahead and get started. There's a lot of different things that we can talk about, but I like talking about the team from the inside out, because that's how I like to build my foundational analysis. And that's basically how I like to build a football team. So let's start with Bilal Nichols and Andrew Billings. Now, for those who don't know, Andrew Billings and Bilal Nichols are 2 players that are 2 down run stuffers, right? They're not going to be really interior pushers up the middle, right? They're not asked to do those types of things. But what they are asked to do, they're asked to do a lot of different things in terms of, how do I say this? Like being the 2-gap space eater, right? So what I want to say is the proof is in the pudding, in a sense that these guys are really getting it done. Bilal Nichols coming from the Chicago Bears, right? And I talked to Bilal about it I think a couple weeks ago. And people were asking me, even when they signed him to that 2-year, $11 million contract, like, who's Bilal Nichols? Well, luckily you guys had me, because I was covering Bilal Nichols dating back to his time with Chicago Bears when they had Khalil Mack. They had guys like Alec Ogletree. Obviously, they had Roquan Smith there, who's in a contract year this year. His place has kind of tailored off this year as I grade around the league. And it's really concerning, because I don't know if it's getting to his head that he's in the contract year, because he was the best off-ball linebacker in terms of pass coverage, but his run fit integrity has always been on point. This year is not so much. So that's something to watch, especially in tonight's game. And again, this is what I do, man. Like I like grading players. I like grading teams, because again, and formulate my analysis and have a conviction when I go into the pressers and talk to coach about a player, I better know what the hell I'm talking about. So, for instance, George Kalafdis, Jeff Jeffrey Simmons, Pat Surtain. I mean, these are all players. Javonte Williams. These are all players that I asked coach about because again, I run grades. And I see what I see, and I know what I know, and the game film never lies. So when it comes to Bilal Nichols, he's doing a really good job. Someone on Twitter pointed out that he's not a Pro Bowl player. In my system, he's a Pro Bowl player because he's asked to be a 2-down run stuffer. He's not asked to be a double-digit sack artist, right? Like Chandler Jones. Not throwing shade. I'm just saying he has 0 sacks. But getting back to Bilal Nichols and Andrew Billings, those guys are playing at a really high level. What do I mean by that? Okay, so I grade every single snap, right? So Bilal Nichols has graded at an 8.6 out of 10. That is an all-pro level. Not saying he's going to make the Pro Bowl, right? Because we all know that the Pro Bowl is a household name contest. And even so, he's not going to surpass guys like Jeffrey Simmons, Chris Jones, and some of these other guys in the AFC West. Or even, AFC West, yeah. But then even like the AFC, right? So you have a bunch of players there, right? That he's not going to catapult, but he is playing at a Pro Bowl level. In fact, he's playing at an all-pro level in terms of being a 2-down run stuffer. Him and Andrew Billings have only combined for 7 missed run fit assignments in my grading system. That's really good. When you take that into account and then double down on those gains, they only have 2 missed tackles. I mean, 2 missed tackles, what I talk about throughout the year, being fundamentally sound, right? So when you're fundamentally sound and being a 2-gap space eater, especially at the point of attack, where you have to basically free up the second level backers behind you, like Divine Diablo, like Denzel Perryman, like Jayon Brown, that's going to help those guys out immensely, right? So for anyone to say, oh man, Bilal Nichols and Andrew Billings, they're not living up to the hype, or, how come they're not generating any passes? Well, that's not what they're asked to do, man. Come on. Coach Graham ain't going to put them down in the 4-2-5 nickel defense and be like, okay, let's rush from the interior and hopefully you get home. Let's not get it twisted. They've been already home on 1st and 2nd down. That's their job. That's their forte. Now, to put that in perspective, let's go ahead and rank it, right? I run grades on all the Raiders players, defensive players. Let's rank it. Bilal Nichols, to me, is a beast of a man, all right? Now, he ranks 2nd on the team in tackles for no gain, all right? He ranks 2nd on the team for tackles for no gain versus run with 2.5, only behind, obviously, Max Crosby. So to say he's not generating pressure at or resetting the line of scrimmage, you'd be doing yourself a disservice when you grade the snap. Second of all, he has 2 quarterback hits and quarterback pressures combined, so 1 of each. And so that is a good sample size to pull from because, again, he's taken out on passing downs. He's not in on money downs, right? So that's what I'm saying is, like, why would you grade a player from a small sample size to pull from anyways when the coach isn't really asking you to be that guy, right? Like Chandler Jones. He's asked to rush the passer. That's his forte. He's not asked to be a good run fit integrity guy and anchoring the edge. Obviously, he has to do that too, but his forte is his pass rush. Does not get it twisted, right? So same thing applies with Bilal Nichols. He's not asked to be a pass rusher. He's asked to be a 2-down run stuffer, and he's playing a very good job. Same with Andrew Billings. So I think those guys are doing a tremendous job up the middle, up the gut, and holding the point of attack. I think Coach Graham is doing a really good job at scheming things up. And we're going to talk about Coach Graham and how he's putting his players in the best position to make plays. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Thank you so much, Nation Nightmare DSR, for the super chat and super sticker. I really appreciate the love and support, man. You are nothing but awesome, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, so let's go ahead and talk. Let's go ahead and talk about another edge rushing duo, and that's Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. When Chandler Jones signed that big money contract at 17 million APY, I have to be honest, I was kind of on it. Why? Because I run grades, right? Even though I didn't cover the Raiders last year, even though I did cover the Cardinals, I cover all 32 NFL teams, right? So I ran grades. He had a torn bicep, was dealing with that. Not very good in run fit integrity, but he is a pass rush specialist, right? That's what he does. He rushes the passer. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he's great though, right? So I'm not saying he's better than average as a pass rusher, but in run fit integrity in the overall scheme of things, I'm going to say he's an above average player, right? But to warrant that 17 million APY that he's making, is that noteworthy? Is that worth it? Is he worth that money? Well, if you think about the production that he produces on the field or the lack thereof, and then you take aside the leadership production, I mean, you have to put 2 and 2 together, right? When building the Patriot way or the Raider way or the winning way, whatever you want to call it. So again, I grade every single snap when it comes to Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. And Max Crosby, if you guys follow me on Twitter, he's been graded as my number 1 edge. He actually catapulted Khalil Mack, who was graded at 8.9. Max Crosby comes in at 9.0. Now, I still have to grade the LA Chargers Cleveland Browns game, which I'll do after this podcast concludes. But more times than not, Max Crosby is probably going to win that battle entering week 5. This guy is just a man among boys, and Max Crosby is really a man among boys. So when you compare Max Crosby's grade of a 9 out of a 10, which is an all-pro level, first team all-pro level, and then Chandler Jones, who comes in at a 5.2 out of a 10, which is a near average level, right? That's an average player grade in my system. You kind of put 2 and 2 together and see what's going on here. Now, Jones is tied for the team worst 4 missed run fits along with Andrew Billings. All right. So they're tied for the worst in terms of run fit integrity and run fits. All right. Secondly, he's second worst as in Chandler Jones in run fit production behind Billings. Right. So again, as a 2-gap space eater, that's really when I'm talking about Billings, and then you take Chandler Jones into account, it's almost like, okay, so again, like I said, that's not his strong suit. That's not his. That's not what he does best, right? You're not asked Chandler Jones to kind of set a hard edge. Yes, you do, and you want to cage him in. Coach, I get that, but then again, if you look at the film and watch the film, he's giving up a lot of run fit integrity. So I will say this. I will say Chandler Jones has come on the last 2 games. In fact, I tweeted this out. He played at a Pro Bowl level against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he racked up quarterback pressures, quarterback hits. He did good in run fits. So he really is coming to his own. So for me to say that he's not going to be good, I'm not going to say that. I will say he's coming in and hitting that midseason stride. So this bye week is going to be a really, really good thing for Chandler Jones, because I think in the next 4 or 5 games, he's going to rack up 4 or 5 sacks. Watch it happen. He's going to rack maybe even more sacks. I don't know. But I know if I was a betting guy, I would bet that Chandler Jones would have 4 or 5 sacks over the next 4 or 5 games. He's good. Like to say he's not a good pass rusher, you'd be doing yourself a disservice. He is a very good pass rusher. And even though the sack production is not always there, he is generating pressure from time to time, as he has 3 quarterback hits and 4 quarterback pressures, which is second best on the team, only to Max Crosby. All right. So speaking of Crosby, he accounts for 75% of the sack production, right? He has 6 out of the 8 teams, 8 sacks. All right. You guys know the other 2 players? It's not an edge rusher. I tell you that. You guys know Denzel Perryman, and who's the other guy? I'll let you guys go ahead and figure out the other guy, but it's not an edge rusher. All right. So he's 75% of the sack production, which is only 8 sacks through 5 games. They need to generate more of a pass rush, right? And he paces the team in run fit production with 9 drive killers. What's a drive killer? Well, it's a tackle for loss or a tackle for no gain at the line of scrimmage. That's a drive killer in my grading system. So he has 5 tackles for loss for minus 12 yards of hidden yardage. And he also has 4 tackles for no gain. And he also has 7.5 tackle wins under expected value. So you put that all together, and what do you get? A first team all pro level, best of the best, cream of the crop. So Chandler Jones, Max Crosby, I do like that dynamic. I do think Chandler Jones is coming to his own. Let's give the guy a break because it's still early on in the season. And I think as he hits this midseason stride, you're going to really see why Chandler Jones was brought in, because I do like Chandler Jones. I do think he can produce sack numbers, and those sacks are going to come because the pressure rate is there, even though it's not consistent. All right. So next up we have, gosh, there's a lot to talk about. Next up, we have the inside linebackers or the outside linebackers too. So we have Denzel Perryman, Jayon Brown, and of course, Divine Diablo. All right. So Divine Diablo, Jayon Brown, all these guys, right? And so you really have to look at the production. So how good are these guys, right? So let's move on to the second level backers, right? Denzel Perryman, one of my favorites to cover, gets an incomplete grade due to a myriad of injuries, right? So he has an ankle injury. He had a concussion. He was taken out for half of the game there, missed 2 games here. So again, I love Denzel Perryman from a player's perspective, but can he stay healthy, right? So the best ability is durability. And so that's why he gets an incomplete grade from me. And when I tweeted this out on who the second best player is outside of Max Crosby, who's obviously the best player on the team, people were leaving the comment Denzel Perryman. I would agree with Denzel Perryman. I would agree with that 100,000% if he was healthy for all those 5 games, or even 4 out of the 5 games, right? But again, if you do the math, how many quarters is he actually healthy to warrant being the second best player on the team right now? I'm not saying he's not going to be healthy. I want him to be healthy. I'm just painting a picture of the facts. The facts is he hasn't been healthy. But the facts is when he is healthy, he's a monster. He's a monster. Like, he's a Pro Bowl player. Like, in my grading system, he's a Pro Bowl player, grading at 7 out of 10. So again, what I see from Denzel Perryman is I need to see durability, which I hope and I pray that he does stay durable, because I do like the guy. I do think he's a Pro Bowl player, but in order to warrant as the second best defensive player on the team through the first 5 games, it's hard for me to go ahead and make that conviction about a player who really hasn't been there through half of those games, right? So that's all I got to say about that. But then when you look at guys like, okay, like Jayon Brown, right? He's a liability in pass pro. Didn't play against the Kansas City Chiefs because he had a hurt hamstring. All right. But then the guy is a liability in pass pro. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. He's still playing at a really high level, but let's run the grades, right? So he was targeted 17 times, 16 of those going for completions for 219 passing yards in my grading system. Of those 16 completions, 9 of them were good for first downs, and that's second worst on the team. All right, that's all I got to say about that. And you saw the team. I'm not saying Jayon Brown is a bad player. I like Jayon Brown. In fact, I like all these players. But I'm just painting a picture of when I grade the snap, this is what I'm finding. All right. Now, if you disagree, the burden of proof falls on you to go ahead and prove me wrong, because I already did the legwork on watching hours of game film. So let's not get it twisted. All right. So he trails only Nate Hobbs, who allowed 10 first downs, right? So you compare Jayon Brown's 9 first downs to Nate Hobbs, who gave up 10 first downs. He didn't even play against the Chiefs, as in Jayon Brown, like I just mentioned. So, it's one of those things where, do you want to roll with Divine Diablo, Denzel Perryman, and Jayon Brown moving forward? Or when you roll in that 4-2-5 nickel defense, do you take Jayon Brown and just roll with Denzel Perryman and Divine Diablo, even though Denzel Perryman is not known as a pass coverage guy? He's more known as a 2-down run stuffer. But again, Jayon Brown to me is, in comparison to when I covered the Pittsburgh Steelers for Sports Illustrated back in 2019, when they brought in Mark Barron in, and they thought Mark Barron was going to be the pass coverage guy. And then we saw the musical game of musical chairs there with Marcus Allen coming in from the defensive back, now trying to switch him to inside linebacker. There's a lot of different things, right? So it's just like, for me, it's one of those things where you have to really look at it and say, hey, look, like, who was the best 11, right? You talk about the best 5 on the offense side of football, but who's the best 11 on defense, right? And so that's why I think that maybe it'd be best suited to just keep with Denzel Perryman and Divine Diablo on third downs. For now. That's just my analysis. Now watch me be wrong. Which brings me to Divine Diablo, right? Divine Diablo is coming into his own. He's a converted safety from Virginia Tech, moving on to linebacker, right? And so I have to admit, he struggled in the first 3 games, right? He really did. He struggled in the first 3 games, but then played at a Pro Bowl level the last 2. And that is really, really positive, simply because the last 2 games were against AFC West opponents. So you're going to see these guys another time, right? You see these guys 2 times a year, in the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs. So he played extremely well the last 2 games. So you see the progress. And Coach Graham talked about it. He's like, you need a guy like Divine Diablo in my system, right? You need a Divine Diablo on the defense because he can do so many different things. And I agree with him. I love Divine Diablo. In my grading system, he was targeted 25 times, 19 of those going for completions for 206 passing yards and a team high 3 touchdowns in coverage. All right. So he did give up 3 touchdowns in coverage, but those were early on. Those were within the first 3 games. Look, he's learning a new position. You have to cut him some slack. You can't just be like, oh, Divine Diablo sucks. Like I see this on, it's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, stop. All right. So he did give up a team high 3 touchdowns in coverage, but it came through the first 3 games. It didn't come in the last 2, which I just mentioned. He played at a Pro Bowl level. So Divine Diablo is playing at a really, really high level. I like what they have in the future with Divine Diablo. I think he's going to be a staple for Coach Graham and the team moving forward on defense. And here's some food for thought. In the last 2 games, he was targeted 6 times, 4 of those going for completions for only 20 yards. 20 yards, that's it. 20 yards. 20 yards, that's it. So in my grading system, he's graded at a 6.0, which is an above average. In my grading system, I think he's playing extremely well. People are probably wondering, like, how the heck do you know this? Tregelli 805 says, Barry found this on YouTube, brother. I'll be checking it out more now. Thank you so much. I appreciate the love. We got a lot of comments coming through. And Jesse Cardenas says, I noticed Bars has more chemistry with Colton Miller on the left side over playing on the right side. Yeah, it's one of those things where it was really fun to watch. It was really fun to see Alex Bars. And look, the common denominator of Josh Jacobs, aside from Jakob Johnson being used more in 21 and 22 personnel, whatever the case may be, is Alex Bars. He's the starting offensive guard. Started at left guard, started at right guard. Doesn't matter. He's Josh Jacobs still running over 100 rushing yards and really getting it done. So the common denominator is Alex Bars. and Jakob Johnson. I would say both of those guys. I like Jakob Johnson, by the way. What's up, G says, that sounds odd. I hope you're able to meet Alzado. Okay, so Raider Nation, Raider Chaos says mahalo. SVT Vasquez says, good morning, everyone, and good morning, Beast. Hope you are having a great day. All right, so we have a lot of things coming in. And again, if you guys like the channel, if you guys like what I have to say, just give it a thumbs up and also subscribe in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. You'll see a subscribe button right there. Just go ahead and subscribe and turn on the notification so you get notified when I go live or when I upload content. So without like every defensive player, I like Jaron Brown, even though, you know, I'm pointing out flaws in this game, but we all have flaws. Like I have a flaw in my game. Like when I go on a live stream, like I don't always get it right. I'm not always perfect. I get things wrong. So like no one's perfect. Like no one can get things right 100% of the time. So as long as they clean it up in the second half of the season, especially coming off a bye week, that's the indicator that I want to look for. From a coaching perspective, you want to take this as a reflection process and say, okay, so in the next 4 or 5 games or 3-4 games, without looking too far ahead, what do we need to do in order to put these players in the best position to make plays? Maybe someone's struggling in this cover shell. Maybe someone's struggling on this type of rules of engagement. Maybe we have to clean up some of these things on the front end to help out the back end. I mean, these are little things that we have to work on, right? And so again, a lot of that comes into scheme, right? So you talk about the opposing players' teams and their top players. For instance, everyone is going to overlook the Houston Texans, but let's not get attention. In my grading system, Nico Collins just dominated J.C. Jackson. Right? How do I know that? I ran grades. And so when you see that, Nico Collins just basically turned JC Jackson into a below average player. He really did. Go watch the game film. And so when you have guys like that, and you have guys like Brandon Cooks, and you have Damian Pierce there, I mean, they have skill players. So to say that, you know, the Houston Texans are just going to lay down and not put up a fight against the Las Vegas Raiders, who are coming off a bye week, who, by the way, both teams are on bye weeks, right? That's interesting, right? Both teams are on bye weeks, so no one gets a pass. Everyone's on the same level in terms of recovery time. You're really going to have to see how these guys hold up. And Nico Collins is a very underrated wide receiver in my grading system. Just got to point out and say it. So don't sleep on him, or don't sleep on Brandon Cooks, who I actually like coming out of Oregon State. You know, Brandon Cooks was a guy that I wanted the 49ers to go after. And I asked GM Trent Baalke what he thought about Brandon Cooks, and I compared him to Steve Smith. And he's like, oh, well, and then GM Trent Baalke is like, oh, yeah, you know, like when you compare small players like that, he's like, oh, yeah, or are these guys vertically challenged, or do they play like Steve Smith? So Brandon Cooks, obviously, Brandon Cooks is Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is a monster. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. I talk about all 32 NFL teams. When I say I talk about all 32 NFL teams, that's why I have bags under my eyes, man. So I talk about all 32 NFL teams. All right. So Santino Garcia says, how is Waller and what happened on the last play of the game versus the Chiefs? Well, the last play of the game versus the Chiefs, I talked about it yesterday in my live stream. Basically, what I saw is the same thing that happened in the Tennessee Titans game, with Waller and Devontae Adams kind of going in the same direction, or same area, I should say. Same thing applies here. You know, Hunter Renfrow, I think, was supposed to come underneath that route, and Devontae Adams was supposed to run like more of a vertical route. I think what happened, they just got tangled up in the same space area. So I think it's depending on the release. Maybe Devontae Adams gets a free pass on the inside-outside release, and that kind of married their route patterns and kind of created some type of miscommunication or confusion. Because again, when you run routes, you need to understand spacing, just like on a defensive concept in the secondary on the back end. You have to understand spacing. You have to know where your help is. You have to know where the sideline is. You have to be well aware and have the mental aptitude of route recognition, pattern matching downfield based on the rules of engagement. And you also have to know who you're playing alongside with, because if it's like I said, if it's a cover 3 shell, and you know that inside linebacker who is your teammate is not very good at defending the curl hook, because that wide receiver who is coming across the backside over to the play side is coming across behind him, and he is looking at the quarterback's eyes off the play action pass, that's going to leave that open. So you have to do what's called a gap replace, right? Just kind of like in run fit integrity, you have to do kind of like a gap replace on the back end. So a lot of these things come into play when you do those things. But that's what I saw in the last play. I just think it was miscommunication on the back end. I'm not so sure exactly what happened, but that's what I saw from watching the coach's film. Someone's like, how the hell do you know this? I don't. I just watch film. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the secondary, right? So let's go ahead and talk about the secondary, and I'll get to your guys' questions. There's a lot of questions coming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. And I'm running out of breath here, talking about a lot of things. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what we need to talk about, right? Let's talk about the secondary, right? So you have Nate Hobbs, right? And I took a poll on who the second best player on the team is, and people are saying Nate Hobbs. But here's the fact with Nate Hobbs. He struggled, right? He struggled last week against Kansas City Chiefs, but that's not all his fault. Why? Why am I not pinning it on Nate Hobbs? Dude, the guy was gutting it out. That showed heart that he was dealing with a thumb injury and he played with a soft cast on his hand. You try playing football, or even forget football. Just try eating. Try eating food while holding while one hand being wrapped up in a cast. It's difficult. It's difficult. Like, I was really impressed by Nate Hobbs not coming out of that ball game and gutting it out. That shows fight. That shows heart. That shows the Raider way. Look, in order for me to be pulled off that football field, you're going to have to kill me, bro. And I ain't going to be killed. I'm the hunter. I'm not the prey. That's Nate Hobbs' attitude. I love that fight. I love that fight in Nate Hobbs. Again, another one of the guys I love to cover, one of my favorite guys to cover. And so Nate Hobbs really showed a lot of grit. He showed a lot of fight in him. He showed that competitive drive that we talk about. You know, when you talk about the NFL draft and you talk about checking off the boxes, one thing that every GM should check off is the competitive drive to succeed. Doing whatever it takes to win, right? Just win baby mentality from Al Davis, right? Going that extra step, having the unquestioned work ethic, right? Doing the little thing. Forget the on-field production. I mean, that every player is good coming out, but you have to nitpick these little things and find what they do well off the field as well when you don't have to babysit them. Or do you have to babysit them? Do you have to be a guy and have to kind of put in the contract like Kyler Murray did to watch 4 hours of freaking game film a week? It's crazy. I don't know, man. I just think that's crazy. Anyways, I thought Nate Hobbs did a good job, but let's go ahead and run the numbers, right? So he was targeted 31 times this year, for 22 of those going for completions, for 268 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 pass breakups. How do I know this? I memorized the numbers because I ran the numbers late last night. And he has a quarterback passer rating of 108. So although those numbers aren't the best in terms of pass coverage, he makes up for it more in run support. So you look at the overall grand scheme of things and what Coach Graham likes to do with him, and you can make an argument he's the best boundary quarterback on the team overall, right? And the fight he brings in run support cannot be unquestioned, right? He ranks second on the team in tackles for loss for -7 yards of hidden yardage. So again, Nate Hobbs is playing at a really, really high level, like really high level. It's no surprise that he's graded right now in my poll at 85% as the second best player, right behind Max Crosby. I would agree with that. And while, you know, here's another food for thought, right? 75% of the sack production comes from Max Crosby. The other defensive back who has the sack outside of Denzel Perryman, because they only have 8 sacks, is Nate Hobbs. Go figure, right? So Nate Hobbs is a Pro Bowl potential worthy type of player. I hope GM Dave Ziegler locks him up long-term, because the guy is an absolute monster. But the most fundamentally sound boundary cornerback in my grading system has been Rock Ya-Sin. That's it. Rock Ya-Sin. He's only played in 4 games this year. He missed 1, obviously, to a knee strain. I talked about that on earlier live streams, but Rock Ya-Sin, if you guys don't remember, came from the Indianapolis Colts. It was a trade between GM Dave Ziegler and GM Chris Ballard, who are both highly regarded in my grading system. Yes, I grade GMs. And so when you made that trade from Yannick Ngakoue from Rock Ya-Sin, it was kind of like a one-off, right? One had a first-round billing coming out of Temple, and he was supposed to be that guy, that shutdown corner. Obviously didn't work out in Indianapolis, gets shipped out to Las Vegas. Yannick Ngakoue wasn't a fit for the 3-4 base defense, so he gets shipped back to the Indianapolis Colts. And so now you have DeForest Buckner, Yannick Ngakoue, Kwity Paye. You have that kind of formula foundation. Obviously, you have Shaquille Leonard, or formerly Darius Leonard, there, who wasn't in the beginning of the year, but then came on late in the year. So again, yeah, Bobby Okorakoye there. You also have some nice defensive pieces with the Indianapolis Colts. On the flip side of that, with the Las Vegas Raiders, they saw it as an opportunity to get stronger and get good depth at boundary cornerback, just like they did when they picked up Bilal Nichols from the Chicago Bears, who I thought GM Ryan Pace, he's not the GM anymore. Ryan Poles, I should say, went ahead and decided to let Akeem Hicks go to the Tampa Bay Bucks. I thought they were going to resign Bilal Nichols. They didn't. They actually let him walk as well. And so that was GM Dave Ziegler's one man's trash, another man's treasure. And so both those guys, Rock Ya-Sin and Bilal Nichols, are playing at a really high level in my grading system. In fact, let's go ahead and run down the grades. Rock Ya-Sin is the team's least targeted boundary cornerback this year in my grading system when it comes to the Las Vegas Raiders. 7 of those, here's the numbers, right? He has been targeted 20 times. That's it. 20 times Rock Ya-Sin has been targeted. So he's blanketing wide receivers. All right. He's been targeted 20 times, 7 of those going for completions for a total of 58 passing yards. 58 passing yards. That's all he gave up for the quarterback passer rating of 43.8. Again, how do I remember these numbers? It's because I've been like running numbers for the last, since the bye week. And so again, you run the numbers. He just graded out a 7.6, which is the second best cornerback in the entire NFL. He's graded as the second best cornerback in the entire NFL, right behind Pat Surtain. All right. So, and slightly ahead, Sauce Gardner, who came in with a sack and a sack safety, right, last week. If you guys watched that Jets game or watched the coaches film on that, and he also picked up an INT. So, again, I run the landscape and game the pulse around the entire NFL to form my analysis on how good Rock Ya-Sin is. He's balling out of control. The guy's good. Number 26. Holla at your boy. So, he's playing at a really high level. And then you look at guys, we got a lot of comments coming through. Thank you so much, Golder 1849. I appreciate the love and support, man. It means a lot. But yeah, there's a lot of different things that come into play. And like I said, like this is all, how do I say this? This is all fun for me because again, it's a lot of legwork too. I don't have to cover the other 31, but I do it in order to have a conviction about my analysis. Look, if you're going to criticize or say, oh, this player's doing well or this player's doing bad, or not challenge me, but debate with me, have a healthy discussion about it. I like to say, I don't like debate. And I always hated debate, but have a healthy discussion because everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Well, the burden of proof is going to fall on you because I did the legwork. So if I say that Rock Ya-Sin gave up X amount of passing yards, the burden of proof falls on you to prove me otherwise. Because I got grades. That's all I got to say. I got grades. So, that's all I got to say about that. But no, in all honesty, the guy's playing out of control. He's balling out of control. He's doing extremely well, and you can't blame him. You can't fault him. Now, he did have a knee strain, didn't play against the Denver Broncos, but, the guy's balling out of control. The guy's monstrous, right? He's good. So, all right, so let's go ahead and move on to free safety Trayvon Merrick, right? He's a TCU guy. He was drafted high, second round pick. And second round pick? I think it was second round pick out of TCU. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Alex Leatherwood was 1 and wasn't he 2? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyways, Trayvon Merrick was only targeted 6 times this year, 3 of those going for completions. And I only graded 3 games because he was been injured, obviously. So small sample size to pro for him, 3 out of 5. But he's graded out of 6.3. Now, 3 of those 6 completions were good for touchdowns. Or sorry, 2 of those 3 completions were good for touchdowns. Say that 10 times fast. So although he only allowed 3 completions, 2 of those were good for touchdowns. So that's not good. But at the end of the day, I like Trayvon Merrick. I think he's fundamentally sound. He's very professional, gets it both on and off the football field, unquestioned work ethic. He can play the eraser role. I liked him. I even labeled him as a Pro Bowl player coming into the season as a preseason pick. So Trayvon Merrick to me is still a player who I'm really high on. And the grades don't lie. 6.3 is damn near Pro Bowl level. So even though he gave up those 2 touchdowns, he's been fundamentally sound in every other way. So again, I like Trayvon Merrick. I think he's going to do well. In fact, if you notice, I think all the players are going to do well. There's not one player who I said that this guy's horrible. Like he's garbage. No, like I'm not going to say that because they're not. Go run the grades. All right, which brings us to Jonathan Abram. All right, Jonathan Abram. Here's the wild card, guys. Jonathan Abram. Right, Jonathan Abram. How's he doing? Jonathan Abram, if you're watching, how you doing? What does the Beast have to say about Jonathan Abram? Right? Let's go ahead and talk about Jonathan Abram for a second. All right, thank you so much, Eric G180. Say, yo, Beast, give us an end of the year record. Mahalo, brother. Thank you so much for the super chat and super sticker, Eric G182. Thank you so much, Gold Digger 1849. I appreciate it. This is a good one, right? So, like an end of the year prediction for me, it's hard to gauge simply because I need to know how they're going to do. Look, before the season began, I already said 10-7. So I have to stick to that. So I'm not one of those guys that teeter-totters back and forth. Once I make a prediction, I stick to it. Why? Because I like the Beast receipts. I like calling myself when I get it wrong, and then also praising when I get it right, because obviously it goes both ways, right? Like you're not going to want to follow me if I get it wrong all the time. And most times I get it right than wrong. So that's why I'm not afraid to call myself out, because when it does, it's like, oh man, you got it wrong. It's like, oh yeah, got one wrong, right? So when you check out the Beast receipts, I said 10-7. I said 10-7. So we're gonna have to see how that plays out. But again, are they going to win 10 games? I mean, it's going to be a hard stretch. They have a tough schedule, but at the end of the day, I think they have the horses to do it. I think that's this coaching staff can do it. I think the personnel department, look, we can make trades now. When I say we, I mean JDM, Dave Ziegler, and Coach McDaniel. They can strike a deal right now. And if you're looking for an offensive lineman and maybe give up a late round pick, because GM Dave Ziegler has those late round picks that he accumulated, if you guys have been keeping up with the draft capital that he's been getting over the course of the next few years, he might be lining something up, and people are like, oh man, GM Dave Ziegler is horrible. He hasn't done this. He hasn't done that. Look, an empire wasn't built in a day. I'm sorry. You're only like in Texas Hold'em, right? You're only as good as the cards you're dealt, right? The whole cards that you're dealt, right? You don't know what the flop is going to be. You don't know what the turn is going to be. You don't know what the river is going to be. But what you do know is the cards that you're dealt. Here's your whole cards. If you have freaking ducks or pocket deuces, you're already behind the 8 ball, and some guy has AK or 8 queen. All right, whatever. Chances are you're going to lose that hand more times than not, right? If you're playing the odds. Now, if you had pocket 10s going up against pocket queens, then it's more of a, okay, maybe the odds are slightly better. But let's be honest. When you have an offensive line like he did coming in, and he has to roll in guys like Billy Price, who's no longer with the team, got claimed, obviously. He's not on the team anymore. But you bring in certain guys. You had gosh, how come I'm drawing a blank right now? The guy from the New England Patriots, Huron, right? You had Huron here who before he tore his ACL. So I mean, they're doing everything they can to bring in guys, right? And so like I said, an empire wasn't built overnight. Give GM Dave Ziegler some time. I already put out a base receipt. He's a top 5 GM. I think he might be GM of the year in 2 to 3 years' time. I truly believe that. I think Coach McDaniels will be a coach of the year in 2 to 3 years' time. Give it some time. I really like this coaching staff. Look, I'm coming from the San Francisco 49ers, who were in the similar dynamic before they had Kyle Shanahan. So I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing, like I said, I keep pounding it. Like, look, like, don't hit the panic button. I even put out a beast receipt that they're going to be the Denver Broncos. I feel like I'm the only one, or one of the few, who said that. Like I said, this coaching staff is way too good. The players are way too good to not win this game. Like they should just win this game. They did. But yeah, my record, I said 10-7. I said 10-7 before the season began. Rage Raider says Abram is terrible cover guy. Look, I'm not going to disagree with that because I called that out in training camp, and I called that out on my grading system over the last 3 years since he entered the league in 2019 as a first-round pick. Drafted, what was he drafted? Number 26 overall? 27 overall, if I'm not mistaken. Josh Jacobs was drafted number 24. But that was a crazy draft, by the way. And Cleve Farrell was drafted number 4. But getting back to Jonathan Abram, yes, he is not the best in pass coverage, but let's go ahead and run the numbers, right? So he hasn't been good in years past, but credit Coach Graham. And again, I like Coach Graham. Anybody who says Coach Graham is not a good coach, yeah, that's a bad take, man. And I don't care about anything else but putting their players in the best position to make plays. And then, because again, coaches coach and players play. I always say it. Look, it's not the coach's fault that there's missed tackles. It's not the coach's fault that they don't know the rules of engagement in a cover 3 shell and they're leaving that Travis Kelce to run down the seam. It's not their fault. You know what I mean? They're scheming it up. You can kind of see, if you know the rules of engagement on a simple cover shell, what the assignments are. Like, hello, or the pre-snap leverage up front. Like, you kind of know how the second level backers are supposed to play their splits from box to spill based on how the guys in front of them, like Bilal Nichols, like Andrew Billings, are supposed to be attacking the run fit integrity based on the personnel that they're seeing and based on the formations and down and distance that they're accustomed to when they watch game film throughout the week. I'm just painting up. I'm just keeping it 100, guys. I'm just keeping it 100. I'm not one, and I'll keep it 100 both ways. If someone sucks, I'm going to say this guy sucks. Not like I can do it, but I will say this guy sucks. I've not said that about one player. I think all these guys have what it takes to really get this ship going in the right direction. I really do. And so that's why I'm very positive right now, and you wouldn't follow me if I wasn't 100. Like, you would, like, why, if I just have like, oh, the Raiders are going to go 17-0, like, oh yeah, they're going to have 50,000 sacks this year and they're going to lead the team. No, like, I'm not that dude. Like, if you want to find that dude, find it somewhere else. You ain't gonna find that dude here. But I will keep it 100 all the time. And that's why you guys follow me, right? A lot of you guys follow me for fantasy. A lot of guys follow me for freaking betting. I don't know why you guys do that, but you guys do that. But no, thank you so much, Rage Raider. He is terrible in coverage for the first few years. But then let's look at the grades, right? Let's look at the grades when I grade every single snap of Jonathan Abram. All right. So Jonathan Abram, again, credit Coach Graham for putting him in the best position to make plays. He has a team high. Forget pass coverage for a second. Let's talk about run fit integrity. He has a team high 5 missed tackles versus the run in my grading system. 5. That leads the team. That's not good. So when people say, can you convert strong safety Jonathan Abram to a linebacker? Well, one, I already talked about locking horns. Same problem that Devin White has, being a lighter linebacker, even though he's explosive, because he's going to have to spill those blocks. He's going to have to slip those blocks. He's going to have to do a lot of different things to use his speed to his advantage to get around those bigger offensive linemen, because once they lock horns, they're going to drive you back off your grass 4 to 5 yards. Let's not get it twisted. Just go watch the game film. I do game film on Devin White. I do game film on Vita Vea. I do game film on Shaquille Barrett, Antoine Winfield, Carlton Davis. All right? Come on, let's keep it 100. So when you talk about converting Jonathan Abram to a linebacker, I'm like, nah, man, like I wouldn't do that. It's the same thing that applies when the San Francisco 49ers across the bay, when they were in the bay, tried to convert USC safety Taylor Mays to a linebacker. That didn't work out, right? Happens all the time. If a guy doesn't pan out here, let's see what we can do and put him in the best position to make plays. Now, credit Coach Graham for putting him in the best position to make plays. Look, I already said that Abram has a team high 5 missed tackles versus the run, but that's not to say he's not playing at an all-pro level. Let me repeat that. Just because he has 5 missed tackles versus the run doesn't mean he's not playing at an all-pro level. Jonathan Abram is playing at an all-pro level in my grading system. In fact, he is like the 3rd best player graded on this football team behind Rock Ya-Sin and obviously Max Crosby. So Jonathan Abram is actually silencing the haters and really putting things to rest. And if you run the numbers, this is the numbers, right? So he was in pass coverage. Talk about pass coverage. He's targeted 22 times, 15 of those going for completions. So let me repeat that. 22 targeted 22 times, 15 of those going for completions for 124 passing yards. Only gave up 1 touchdown and has a quarterback passer rating of 97.5, which isn't great. It's not great. It's not the best. But again, it's progress, right? It's progress. You see him progressing. So 97.5, that's not very good. But at the end of the day, Coach Graham is putting the best position to make plays. And then you're saying, well, how do you grade him at a first team all-pro level if he's grading out as a 97.5 passer rating allowed? Well, let's go ahead and break down those numbers, right? So again, Jonathan Abram is playing at a 7.4. 7.3 is all-pro. He's graded above that at a 7.4. Let's go ahead and run the numbers, right? So what does Jonathan Abram do really well? All right, let's go ahead and talk about that. Well, for one, he's really good at rushing the passer. I mean, you have to put that into account. He has tackle wins. He has 2 tackle wins in my grading system, right? Doesn't have any tackles for loss or tackles for no gains, but he does apply pressure on the quarterback. He has 2 quarterback pressures and 1 quarterback hit, resulting in the loss of down. If you do run the numbers, that's like 3rd on the team. So, I mean, the guy is getting it. And he has 1 pass breakup in pass coverage. So for me to say that he's not doing well, I'm not going to say that. To say that he's not being a really good player, I'm not going to say that. He's been playing really, really well, actually. And so that's why I think that Jonathan Abram, and again, the guy brings a hammer. He's the hardest hitting safety outside of Denzel Perryman. I think you can kind of make a case for both those guys as the hardest hitting safety on the team. But a lot of different things there. A lot of different things. Rage Raider says, I love this entire coaching staff. Believe they will bring us far in 2 to 3. Yes, I agree with you, Roger Raider. I Rage Raider. I agree with you 110%. 110%. 110%. All right. So I believe with you. I'm with you. 1,000%. I think this coaching staff is going to bring in good players. Look, Jack Conklin, I talked about it on Sanjeet's channel. If you guys don't follow my guy Sanjeet, follow him. But you guys probably already do. He's huge on YouTube. But Jack Conklin, right, coming from the Tennessee Titans, now with the Cleveland Browns, he's a guy who I can see come to Raider way because he has the work ethic. He checks all the boxes in terms of what the kind of player that they want. Now, are they going to play a guy like Jack Conklin? 10 million, 12 million AP. I don't know, but I like Jack Conklin. He's a free agent after this year. I like him. Obviously, he's a player that why Nick Chubb is having some success on the right side. Obviously, they have Wyatt Tiller there. And they also have a few other guys like Joel Bitonio, who's always great at a first team all pro level on my grading system. But yeah, they have Jedrick Wills, right? Jedrick Wills, Roll Tide Roll, Jedrick Wills. So a lot of players that they have there, man. But at the end of the day, it's they don't have JC Treader anymore, but the center. But yeah, I think Jack Conklin would be a good fit for the Las Vegas Raiders. Here I am talking about on October 13th, and we're already talking about free agents for next year. But hey, that's what I do. I like thinking ahead. I like talking ahead. So the Beast Receipts, check out. No, Jack Conklin's a guy who's going to be highly sought after. I like Jack Conklin a lot. I think he's a guy that's going to be a really good player for somebody if he doesn't stay in Cleveland, which it's hard to believe because Cleveland likes to run the ball with Kareem Hunt and that two-headed monster of obviously Nick Chubb is a top 5 running back. He might be the best running back in the game. And people, oh, no, it's Derrick Henry. Look, Nick Chubb is one of the most underrated running backs. And Georgia Bulldogs always have a factory of running backs, whether it be Rodney Hampton, Garrison Hurst, Nick Chubb. They have a factory in state. Todd Gurley. I mean, the list goes on. The guy, Herschel Walker. I love watching college game day. I love watching Saturday football. I also love watching Sunday football. A question was asked, how do you know about like players from other teams and stuff? It's because of that, dude. I do the legwork just like I grade the NFL. I grade college players as well. So when the draft comes around, I don't have to do the guesswork on, oh yeah, is this player good? Is he a scheme fit? No, man. Like I already do the legwork on that. So I get college film, I get NFL film, and then I run grades. And then as things go hand in hand, I can kind of formulate my analysis without having to scramble, being, oh yeah, they played the Texans this week. How good is Nico Collins? Well, I just told you how good Nico Collins is because he just burned JC Jackson left and right. And JC Jackson seems to have lost a step, by the way. I don't know if that ankle injury, he seems to have lost a step. Last year, when I graded JC Jackson with the New England Patriots, even though the rules of engagement are a little bit different, if it's a standard cover 3, it still applies. And so when you run the cover 2 or cover 3 or even the cover 1, dude, the guy is, I don't know. I don't think he's 110%. I don't think it's 100% at all. So next time they play him, I would attack JC Jackson. I normally I wouldn't say that. Last year, I would definitely wouldn't say it because he's graded out as a first team all pro level on my grading system. But this year, I would attack him. Now, they do have Asante Samuel Jr., who's also been graded out extremely well in my grading system. Not at a Pro Bowl level, but he's an average, above average starting cornerback. And he's a guy, and obviously they have Derwin James on the back end there at strong safety. But, if you're looking at ways on how to attack the Los Angeles Chargers without Joey Bosa, you can do so. Yes, they have Nasir Adderley there, another Delaware product, just like Bilal Nichols and Joe Flacco. I talked about the Delaware products, but again, it's like, man, like the Chargers, I thought would do a lot better than they have been. Especially, again, I'm going to be grading the Chargers Cleveland Browns game right after this, and then also get ready for the Thursday night football game tonight and watch film on that, watch the broadcast view, and then also get the coaches film on that and run grades on that, which, by the way, the Commanders are commanding attention. I don't know what's going on with the Commanders, man. It seems like, outside of Jonathan Allen, obviously Chase Young is out with the torn ACL, still recovering from that. They still have Daron Payne there, but, when you talk about tonight's game and you really look at what they do best, they have Cameron Curl there. The list goes on and on about the William Jackson III now wants out. He requested a trade. That's not good. That's not that. I mean, when anytime a player requests a trade, there has to be like, what's going on? And then they have to play the game. And then there's some rift between Coach Ron Rivera throwing people into the bus. And then now you're trying to go out and play a game against the Chicago Bears in Chicago. And you have to go up against guys like Darnell Mooney. By the way, I always love Darnell Mooney. Check out the Beast Receipts. He's one of the guys who's a riser, right? He's a riser. Talk about risers. He's a riser. Darnell Mooney, number 11, is a riser. You look at guys like Khalil Herbert, right? Here's some names I'm going to put out for you. It's like, oh yeah, Beast pointed out. Khalil Herbert's also a good guy, right? He's also a riser. I like Khalil Herbert. I like David Montgomery. These guys are very underrated, right? In fact, if they were on the Las Vegas Raiders, they'd probably get some nice touches, David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Darnell Mooney is a guy who can stretch the field vertically. The guy is just a burner. right? And so Darnell Mooney is a guy who I think can really come into his own, just like I think George Pickens is going to be a top 5 wide receiver in 2 years' time. George Pickens, to me, coming out of Georgia, because I ran grades on Georgia, obviously, because I just told you I run college film. Go check the Beast receipts back from 2020. I said George Pickens and Patrick, that's a matchup to watch. Boom, here we are today, right? George Pickens, people are talking about George Pickens. Tony Romo called him. He's like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. He's one of the best wide receivers in the game, right? When they played the Steelers. How do I know that? Because, we're on coaches film and you watch broadcast views and everything like that. So George Pickens, he's a good player. Thank you so much, Guillermo, for the super chat. He says, how tough are the Texans coming to town in a couple weeks? Who are their stars? Thanks, peace. Nico Collins is a guy who I'm really high on. And I know everyone talks about Brandon Cooks and Dameon Pierce and so forth, but I really like Nico Collins. I like Nico Collins. I always liked him coming out. Now, to say that Nico Collins is a Pro Bowl player, I'm not going to go on and say that. But again, I like Nico Collins a lot. I really do. He leads the team in receiving with 272 receiving yards. He can stretch the field vertically, take away that single high safety. And that single high safety is going to have to play, obviously, from the middle of the field to the boundary, right? And so based off what they're doing up front, he averages 18.1 yards per pop. Now, he doesn't have a touchdown yet, but Nico Collins is a guy who is really coming to his own. He has 7 big plays of 20 plus. The guy is really fundamentally sound coming off the line of scrimmage. He's really hard to get hands on. I like Nico Collins. Now, everyone's talking about Brandon Cooks, and deservedly so, but Brandon Cooks is going to be Brandon Cooks. The X factor is going to be Nico Collins and how Coach Graham is going to scheme things up. And again, if you can't generate a pass rush, that's going to create havoc because Dameon Pierce, who is also a beast in his own right, is going to be able to maybe establish some type of a running game. Now, I don't see that happening because I think what Coach Graham is going to do, he's going to play with a tight box. What I mean by tight box, obviously you want to cage Davis Mills in, but Davis Mills is not really a guy to really scramble or anything like that. But, if you're looking at it from a schematic standpoint, Davis Mills has been sacked 12 times this year. And so anytime that Davis Mills is sacked 12 times through their first 5 games, you're looking at that, licking your chops saying, okay, well, what's the pressure rate? Now let's go on and see how we can attack the Houston Texans. Maybe apply a little bit more pressure. Maybe use Jonathan Abram as more of a blitzer in this upcoming game. Maybe roaming closer to the line of scrimmage. Maybe we can kind of disguise our pre-snap blitzes, right? So maybe we can use Amik Robertson off the slot and then roll over our curl flat defender to defend whatever based on the cover shell. If he's defending the curl hook or the curl flat, depending on the cover shell that you're in, you can kind of do that. Maybe use a fire zone blitz from time to time. Maybe use a fire dog blitz from time to time, going up straight to A gap. So again, there's a lot of different things that you can do when you face a team like the Houston Texans who are basically unpredictable in the sense that, look, we know what they are, but we don't know what they are, right? If that makes sense. So you have guys like Nico Collins, they have guys like Brandon Cooks who are definitely going to be problems, right, for the secondary, or could potentially, I shouldn't say be problems, present a challenge would be a better word to describe. It's a challenge, right? It's a challenge. It's an opportunity for these defensive backs to compete. It's an opportunity for these linebackers to hold up in coverage and compete, right? If you get beat deep, so be it. Okay, come back to the next play and get an INT or get a pass breakup or win that down, right? Bump him off the line of scrimmage. Don't give him a free release off the line of scrimmage, right? Reroute him. Throw off the timing. These are things that I want to see from the defensive backs when they go up against a guy like Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks. Now, those are 2 guys I like to keep an eye on, but let's not get it twisted. Coach McDaniel is very familiar with Rex Burkhead because he was with New England, right? So Rex Burkhead's another guy who you have to keep an eye on, even though Rex Burkhead hasn't been used much. He only has 64 rushing yards, but the guy in the passing game has 112 passing yards. Let me just pull it up right here. I think it's 112 passing yards. So look, there's a lot of guys who can kind of make an impact. And when you take that into account, you really have to say, hey, look, all right, so that's the offense side of the ball. What about the defense side of the ball, right? Like, how are they going to do on defense, right? So you look at guys that they have and really, Steven Nelson, right? Steven Nelson is a guy who I covered with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a guy that, was on the Philadelphia Eagles and then didn't really pan out. And now before that, he was with the Kansas City Chiefs. And so he's a okay cornerback, but he gets burned a lot. In fact, I have grades on that if you guys want to see that. Steven Nelson was good 1 year and then he kind of just tapered off. Like, Steven Nelson to me is a guy that you can attack downfield. I would attack Steven Nelson. Jalen Petrie is he's a damn good player. If you guys don't know who Jalen Petrie is, he's a free safety. I've been doing grades on him. Obviously, Derek Stingley is another one, running grades on him. These guys are all rookies, and they have really good secondary. They have a good secondary, I would say. Not a great secondary, but a very, very promising secondary with Jalen Petrie there and obviously Derek Stingley. Now, Derek Stingley, when you watch the LSU college film, and I ran grades on Derek Stingley dating back to 2020 up until his draft, when the draft rolled around, he kind of has mental lapses in coverage. Like one game he'll play lights out, the next game he'll like have a like what are you doing moment. So for me, Derek Stingley is a player that I want to keep an eye on because I think he's a player that can really come into his own, and he has all pro potential, not Pro Bowl potential. He has all pro potential. So Derek Stingley to me is a guy who I think can really make an impact, and he probably will get tested early on because he is a rookie. So when you go up against guys like Devontae Adams or Hunter Renfrow, it's going to be a tough matchup for Derek Stingley simply because Hunter Renfrow is one of the best route runners of the game off the line of scrimmage. Devontae Adams is Devontae Adams. So those are some guys to look forward to. Those are some guys who are to look forward to. And thank you so much for the super chat and super sticker. I really appreciate it, man. It like I said, it means a lot. And all of the money will go toward my going to a road game fund. Once we get that and hit that threshold. Tupac Winners, if you could go back, would you trade for Khalil Mack instead of signing Chandler? Or any rusher you would have targeted instead of Jones? I think what it comes down to, I think the big reason why they targeted Chandler Jones is because he comes from the Patriot way. And I think in order to formulate a culture, it's good to have a guy like Chandler Jones inside that locker room. With that being said, I wasn't high on Chandler Jones coming out. All right. I graded him dating back to 2020, and I was a little bit before that. But look, the guy is not very good in run fit integrity, but he is a good pass rusher. But then like he kind of disappears from moments to moments. Like the reason why he ends up with 10, 12 sacks is he'll have like 6 in one game, like, and then disappear for the next 4. So if it was up to me, I would say whatever the asking price is, we have to know what that is. But yeah, I would try to make a trade for Khalil Mack, bring him back to Las Vegas Raiders, because Khalil Mack in my grading system is graded number 2 right behind Max Crosby. In fact, he was number 1 before week 5 started. So when you look at the top 5 edge rushers as I run grades around the NFL, let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right. So you have Myles Garrett, who comes out at 7.3, got in that car accident, really didn't play, right? Last week. So I still have to run grades because he played. Actually, no, he played last week. The week before he didn't play. And so he comes in and he's been graded at a 7.3 up until this point. I still have to grade week 5. So you look at guys like Khalil Mack, who I just said came in at number 2 at 8.9. Max Crosby, obviously 9.0. Nick Bosa's coming in at 8.3. He's dealing with a groin injury, but got hurt against the Carolina Panthers. Also came off with the ACL back in 2020. So he's been kind of banged up over the course of the last 2 years. Cameron Jordan, another underrated guy. He's a guy who was voted first team All-Pro by me because I have year-end voting rights for Pro Football Writers Association, which is another reason why I run these grades. I don't just do it for fun. I actually have year-end voting rights for the Pro Football Writers Association. So I actually have a vote. So I take that very seriously, which is why I run grades. I don't just go to the box score. So Cameron Jordan, for simple grade purposes, back in 2020, graded at a 6.4. In 2021, graded at a 7.4, which is at a first team All-Pro level. And then 2022, I still have to grade week 5, but I know he picked up a sack and had a lot of pressure rates, but I have to grade that. But right now he's coming out at 6.8. Von Miller comes in at an 8.0 for the Buffalo Bills. Rashawn Gary is a guy who's really coming to his own. And then you also have guys like George Karlaftis, who's coming into his own. He's graded out of 5.6 right now through week 5. And then obviously Chandler Jones comes in at 5.2. So when you take at guys who I would actually trade for, obviously Khalil Mack would have been one of those guys. I think that would have been like, you have Khalil Mack, Max Crosby is game over. Like that's arguably the best. That's not even arguably. It's the best 1-2 punch in the entire NFL. Like you cannot say that's not going to be a one. And let's not get it twisted. Any Raider fan would love to have Khalil Mack on their team. Like anybody who says that Khalil Mack is washed up, you're not watching the game film. He's not washed up. You know what I'm saying? So like that's all I got to say about that. Thank you so much, Kevin Lurker, for the super chat. I appreciate it, my man. Means a lot. So thank you. I appreciate it. Edge rushers is one of those things where it's also can be, don't look at the sack numbers, look at the pressure rate. That's what I look for. I look at the pressure rate. I look at not only pressure rate, but how teams are scheming these players up. Like Aaron Donald he wouldn't necessarily have a high, like one of the highest pressure rates, but he's triple teamed a lot. So when you do that, you're doing what? You're having a mob stat, right? What's a mob stat? In my grading system, a mob stat is making others better. By default, if Aaron Donald's triple teamed, getting tripped off the line of scrimmage from the tight end, and then has to go ahead and face a double team from the guard tackle exchange, right? Or let's say the tackle's lined up one-on-one. Well, maybe he's lined up as a 3-tech. So let's say it's the guard or the center, right? Then he's matched up one-on-one, but then he has backside help from max protect from the running back. That's 3 guys that you have to account for just on Aaron Donald. So what does that do? It leaves opportunities for Leonard Floyd, Gaines, A'Shawn Robinson. These guys can eat, right? Even though A'Shawn Robinson's not known as a double-digit sack artist, he has to win that one-on-one battle that Coach Graham likes to talk about, right? You have to win your one-on-ones, right? You have to win your cat coverage, right? Just like on the back end, right? So you have to win your one-on-ones down in the trenches. Otherwise, you're going to be coming off the football field, because if you can't win your one-on-ones, you're basically becoming a liability, not an asset. That's how I see it. And so that's basically the name of the game. It's like, look, when people say, oh, man, this guy has 6 sacks, so he must be doing well. It's like, no, man. Like, for instance, yes, Alex Highsmith has, 5.5 sacks? I don't know what the number is, but I think he had 5.5 sacks going into week 5. He's playing at a really high level, right? And you can't say, oh, it's TJ Watt lined up on the other side. No, if you look at it, I ran grades on Alex Highsmith since he came out, right? Since he was a 49er out of Charlotte, right? At a 3rd round pick. He was going to be replacing Bud Dupree, which is why Bud Dupree left for Tennessee Titans. I saw it coming. I put out a video on it. Don't believe me? Go check out the Beast receipts on the video on YouTube. I said, Alex Highsmith is going to be a Pro Bowl player. Watch. I said this back in 2020, COVID year. Here we are 2 years later. He's going to be a Pro Bowl player. Watch. And he's not playing with TJ Watt. TJ Watt is hurt. So again, when you look at the defensive front end of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and people are saying the Steelers defense is washed up, I would be like, I don't know, I'm not so concerned. I wouldn't be so sure, I should say. I'm not so concerned, because they do have Cameron Hayward playing at a Pro Bowl level, right? Cameron Hayward, again, gets my first team All-Pro nod over the last 2 years, because he's one of the most underrated players, just like Grady Jarrett is for the Atlanta Falcons, right? These guys are not really household names, but they have Hall of Fame resumes. Let's not get it twisted. Yes, both those guys have Hall of Fame resumes. Check out the receipts. Look, these guys are getting home all the time. They're very underrated. And you look at the defensive front end of the Steelers, you can argue that they're one of the best in the game. They have Myles Jack in there, who they got, right? You got Devin Bush, who they declined their 5th-year option, but he's a former 1st-round pick, right? You also have Alex Highsmith there, who's getting home. You bring in guys like Larry Ogunjobi, who is one of the most underrated defensive linemen, just like Bilal Nichols was. I thought that was a great pickup for them. You have, obviously, Tyson Alualu, the Cal product, drafted number 9 overall by the Jacksonville Jaguars over the course of the years. He is now a backup, because now you have DeMarvin Leal, who I said was going to be a stud, just like George Pickens was going to be a stud, and I graded the Steelers as one of the best drafts. How do I know that? Because I ran grades on college film out of Texas A&M. DeMarvin Leal was a guy that I was like, man, this guy's going to be a beast, and I can't believe he got out of the 1st round. Look at DeMarvin Leal. The guy is eating. Right? The guy, he can very well be a Pro Bowl player in that 34 base defense. I'm just saying, DeMarvin Leal is a guy, just like George Pickens is a guy on the offense side of the football. So you can kind of see the pieces that not GM Kevin Colbert, even though that was his last draft, but Omar Khan is doing and really formulating his team. And again, how do I know that? You have to know the dynamics around the NFL. Otherwise, how do you know what to compare to? Like, I just don't understand why. I can't do it. I can't go on a podcast or YouTube live stream and be like, oh yeah, Coach McDaniels is horrible. It's like, okay, compared to what? Like, what are you comparing to? Or GM Dave Ziegler's horrible GM. Like, yeah, he hasn't done nothing with the offense. It's like, what are you comparing to? I don't know. That's just me. But thank you so much, Kevin Lurker, for the super chat. I appreciate it. SVT says, congratulations, Max Crosby is about to have his daughter. Yeah. That's always good news, and I hope and I'm happy for him. Kevin Lurker says Max should come back home like Charles did and finish his career. Yeah, Charles Woodson, that would be dope. I would love that. I would love to see that happen. But look, there's a lot of things we can talk about today. We talked about the rundown of the full spectrum of grades, and people want to know exactly my analysis on that. I just give it to you guys tenfold. Now, we talk around players around the league, right? So you say, oh, you grade players around the league. Yes, I do. And I just name dropped all these players. Here's a guy who's really coming into his own. Let's talk about some rookies, right? So, like we talked about Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie, some of these other guys. But let's talk about some of these players who may not be well known, like George Karlaftis. This is a guy who I liked coming out, just like I liked DeMarvin Leal, just like George Pickens. Heck, make me a GM. I'm joking. It's not as easy as that. But the Beast Receipts do check out. DeMarvin Leal is a guy, and George Karlaftis are guys that are going to be staples. They're going to create havoc for the Las Vegas Raiders because those guys are they're dominant. They're dominant even for rookies. Like you saw what George Karlaftis did, right, against the Raiders. So like George Karlaftis is really coming into his own. I thought he's going to be a beast. Coming out of Purdue, Purdue seems to turn Big Ten defensive front seven players all game long. Like you dating back to like even like the days of the Chico O'Keefer. You guys remember Chico O'Keefer? If you guys, for all you Niner fans, remember Chico O'Keefer, you guys don't remember Chico O'Keefer, he was a guy that, like, luckily the ref didn't flag him for pass interference against the New York Giants in that come from behind victory in the playoffs in that wild card game against the New York Giants. That was a brutal game. That was one of my favorite games to watch, where Michael Strahan was pointing at the scoreboard to Terrell Owens after he scored the touchdown, and Terrell Owens just kind of walked it off. And then you see Jeff Garcia coming. Oh man, that was a good game. You have to be a football fan. It doesn't matter if you like the Niners or hate the Niners. That was a good game. Ty Streets, remember getting that touchdown where Jeff Garcia threw it on the only place where I remember because I was at that game. Front row and center. I remember seeing Ty Streets scoring that touchdown on the left sideline there. Actually, it was kind of like a quick slant since he left sideline. Terrell Owens just getting into it with Sean Williams and all those guys there. Gosh, that was hits out of bounds, hits after the play. It was brutal, man. It was really brutal, but it was good. I think during that year, the 49ers also had two former Giants. I believe they had Scott Gregg. The right tackle, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. And they also had Ron Stoney. They had Ron Stone. So both Pro Bowl player. Well, no, Scott Gregg was never a Pro Bowl player, but Ron Stone was. But yeah, those were some guys, some hogs in the middle of the heart of the offense. Good times. Good times. All right. So what other questions you guys have? Hit me. All right. Keep on shining like a diamond, Beast. Have a great day. Thank you so much, man. He says, respect Raider Nation family. All right. So we have some questions. I'm just going to roll up here. What's up, G says, question for everyone. How did you become a Raider fan? What influences made you choose the Raiders? That's actually a good question. That's actually a great question. Answer. That'd be good. All right. So I just want to say, go back and scroll up here. Thank you, everyone, for sending me super chats and super stickers. If you'd like to donate, you guys can go ahead and do that as I do this live stream. If not, just give it a thumbs up. 20 of you guys are watching right now, so just give it a thumbs up, and then you guys can go ahead and support me that way, because that helps out a lot. That helps out the algorithm a lot, and it really helps out a lot. Holly says, everyone hit the like button and subscribe to all social media at BEASTwriter. Yeah, and the good thing with YouTube now is now we have handles. I don't know if you guys understand that or understand that like I'm telling you. Did you not know that? No. So YouTube has now handles, just like Twitter, just like all the other social media outlets like TikTok. So luckily they reserved mine. So it's BEASTwriter. So today I was approved and I got at BEASTwriter. So yeah. So it's pretty much nothing stays the same. The links still work. But yeah, if you guys want to follow me on YouTube or subscribe to my channel, you can do that in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. And then also flip on and turn on the bell notifications. But also, you guys can just say, hey, just go to BEASTwriter. So when people say, how do you find you? Just type in BEASTwriter. And people think it's like BEASTwriter, like I'm riding a bike or something like that. No, it's like BEASTwriter, like I'm a writer. Or typer, influencer. That'd be weird. Hi, what's your name? Beast influencer. That sounds so corny. But if you say BEASTwriter, it's like, oh, like riding a bike? Like, no, like riding. That's just to say BEASTwriter. No, but thank you everyone for the super chat and super stickers. I appreciate it. Let's just go back and go down the rundown. Nation Nightmare DSR. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man. You're nothing but good vibes only. And I believe this is your first time in here. If it's not, well, definitely the first time engaging here. I remember everyone who comes into the YouTube live stream. So thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. Thank you so much, Gold Digger 1849 for the super sticker. I really appreciate it, man. Nothing but good vibes here. And like I said, a little goes a long way. Thank you, Eric G 182. I appreciate it. Yeah, I said the record would be 10-7. Hopefully, they can wrap up 10-7 because again, that's finishing the season on a high note, right? They already have 4 losses, so I'm gonna say they only lose 3 games to end out the year. I know that sounds crazy, but I already put that out there before the season. I'm not gonna change it. I'm not what I call a flip flopper fake or a triple F. That's what I call triple Fs, a flip flopper fake. One person who says one thing in real time and then in hindsight goes, "Oh, I never said that." Oh yeah, no, this player's a good player. It's like, no, man, you said this player sucked. Stop with the shenanigans, dude. Stick to your guns and be a man about it. Thank you so much, Rage Red. I appreciate it. I agree with you on this coaching staff, by the way. So I agree with you 110%. Really means a lot. And I think it means a lot to them too, because knowing that the Raider Nation has their back, who doesn't want that? Guillermo, thank you so much for your question on the Houston Texans. I broke that down. I said Nico Collins, Brandon Cooks, obviously Jalen Petre's there. Derek Stingley's obviously a guy you have to be mindful of because he likes to make plays on the football, and he can do that and turn those PBUs into INTs. So he's a guy you really got to keep an eye out for. Kevin Lurker, thank you so much. As always, my man, you have been nothing but showing me nothing but love, and I appreciate it. But yeah, no, thank you so much to everyone for the super chats and super stickers. All right, so that's going to be able. Doesn't even make sense. That's going to wrap up this live stream. I'm going to hop off. I need to go to the gym, get my gains in, and then obviously get ready for tonight's game. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a watch party live stream or not. I'm still debating on that because I kind of like just focusing on the game itself. But the Raiders aren't playing. Maybe we should do that, and we can talk about anything in between. I don't know. You guys get to choose. You guys let me know. How about that? You guys let me know after this video concludes or in the comment section right now whether or not you want to do a live stream, and I'll go ahead and do another live stream for you guys. But I think this is good enough as of right now on this live stream because we covered everything we need to know on the defensive side of the football along with the offensive side as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you had a lot of fun. I know I did. I'm about ready to head to the gym, get my gains in. You guys know where to find me at EOS St. Rose Parkway. Holla at your boy. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good day. BEASTwriter out.